Hey, what's up? My name's Aaliyah and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be doing a book tag, and this is called the Bar in the Bookcase book tag. So basically I'm going to be recommending you books based on some different cocktails. So let's just get into it. So I will leave the original tag video link down below. Also, if I seem a little rusty, it's because I have not filmed a sit-down video in quite a while, so long time no see. I have been really busy lately because I just started a new job and I've been working a lot. So today we're going to be doing some filming and I'm really excited. So starting off with the first question for this tag. Question 1 is an old-fashioned historical fiction recommendation. So for this, I am going to recommend you The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. So I know everybody's basically read this already, but if you haven't, you seriously should because it's so good. So this is a historical fiction, and it's kind of like young adult, and we follow this young girl while she's living in Germany during World War II. And this book is very sad. It made me bawl my eyes out, but it's also so good. And it's about friendship, and it's about family. And obviously it's about the war and all the things that were going on during World War II. And it's honestly just a really beautiful book, so I highly recommend if you haven't read it already. And also it's told from the point of view of death, so it's very interesting. So would recommend The Book Thief if you haven't read it yet. And question 2 is Sidecar, a book with a strong supporting character. So for this, I'm going to go with Lockwood & Co., the first one. So this one's called The Screaming Staircase by Jonathan Stroud. And I chose this one because honestly, we follow the main character, Lucy Carlisle, and she's awesome, but like all of the other supporting characters are really cool too. So like George and Lockwood and all of the side characters are super distinctive and really fun and funny, and I loved them. I love their whole group. So it's not like, you know, just the main character is really the one that you get to know. It's everybody, and you just get so invested in this friend group, and I just love them all. They're all so near and dear to my heart. You need to read Lockwood & Co. if you haven't already, because it's so fantastic. And I know you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing me talk about it, but I had to put it in because there's just no other book that has supporting characters quite like Lockwood & Co. And then we have number 3, which is A Manhattan, a book set in New York. So for this, I'm going to go with City of Girls, and this is another historical fiction, and this one's set in New York in World War II, and we follow this woman, and at the beginning of the story, she's like pretty young. I think she's like a teenager, and she's really into like making and designing costumes and stuff. So it's kind of about her and just her life and her finding herself, and what happens to her once the war breaks out, and what she ends up doing for work. And at one point she ends up like kind of working in a theater and doing costumes and stuff like that. So it's really fun. It's also about the different like romantic relationships she has and the different friendships she has and what's going on with her family and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just a really good book, to be honest. I read an arc of this a really long time ago and it was fantastic, so would recommend that. And then number 4 is A Bloody Mary, a book that scared you or messed you up. So I have been thinking long and hard about this one, and the book I'm gonna say for this is The Monk by Matthew Lewis. And I have not talked about this book on my channel, and I haven't talked about it because honestly I think it's the most horrible, disgusting book I've ever read in my whole life. I had to read this for a class in university because if you didn't know, I was an English major, so I had to read a lot of books for literature classes that I didn't really want to read, and this was one of those. And The Monk is about this guy who is a monk, and he lives in a monastery and all that kind of stuff. And he ends up seeing this girl and becoming like totally obsessed with her. And basically this book has a lot of rape and murder and incest and just horrible stuff. There's so much rape. It's literally like horrible. Like I remember I finished this book and it really made me want to throw up, to be honest. I got to the end and I was like, oh my god, I'm so disgusted. I feel like I need to go take a shower, you know? And I felt like I was gonna either cry or throw up. So I remember I went to my boyfriend and was like, please give me a hug. I am so fucked up from this book that I just had to read for class. Like, I'm not okay. So I put The Monk for that one, but I don't recommend that. Like, don't read The Monk. You don't need that in your life. I didn't need that in my life. It's god awful. That book makes me feel disgusting just thinking about it. Ew. Hate The Monk. So number 5 is Espresso Martini, a book that kept you reading into the night. So for this, I honestly had a hard time because I haven't really had a lot of books lately that have just like sucked me in, where I've had to just like stay up all night and binge read them. But one that I had that with last year was The Lady Upstairs by Haley Sutton. I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk about this too, but this is an awesome thriller. So this is a noir thriller, and it's sapphic, and there's like betrayal and blackmail, and people are getting murdered, and it's like really crazy. There's a lot of sex and drinking, but it's really like fast-paced, and the main characters are all like super morally gray, and I honestly ate it up. Like, this book was so freaking good, and it's short, so I basically just binge read the whole thing in like a few days. It was great. Would recommend that if you haven't read it. And then number 6 is, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Sazerac, a book that left you disoriented. So for this, I went with Strange Beasts of China. So this is one that I read on audiobook last year, and the audiobook was really good, but this is a book that was translated from Chinese, and it's about this woman who's living in a fictional city in China where there's like beasts that live alongside humans, and there's all these different species of beasts, and so the book basically follows the life of this woman, and she is a writer, and she's also like a cryptozoologist. Don't even ask me what that means. And basically she like studies these beasts and writes about it. So each chapter of the book follows like a different species of beast that she encounters, and then the thread running through all of the chapters is like her life over like, I don't know, the course of a few years or whatever. But this book is kind of disorienting because it has a lot of magical realism in it. And it also has like a dreamlike quality to it, so you're not really sure like what's real or what is, you know, like the magic that the beasts have, and is our narrator like super reliable, or are the beasts like influencing her, or what is going on. So it was a really kind of complicated book. It also has a lot of commentary on like humanity, and it has a lot of commentary on like Japanese society and things like that. It also talks about like environmental issues and that sort of thing, and it's really interesting, but it's very dreamlike and like a little bit disorienting. And also, when I was listening to the audiobook for this, I was working at the library in the basement, and I was like moving a bunch of books around in the basement, and the basement is kind of like a labyrinth down there, so it was, I don't know, maybe I just associate this book with like being kind of disoriented, but anyways, that's what I have for this. And then number 7 is Long Island Iced Tea, a book that is doing too much, bonus points if it works anyway. So for this, I went with In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and this book is doing so many things, and it works so well. You need to read this book if you haven't already. This is a nonfiction memoir, and it's about a lot of things. It's about an abusive queer lesbian relationship. It's about a lot of things. It's about queerness. It's about how you know, we don't really talk a lot about how queer relationships can be abusive. It talks about all kinds of stuff, and it's also interesting because each like little section of this book is told in vignettes, and each vignette is about the author's life and her relationship with this woman that was really toxic, but she looks at the relationship through the lens of other things. So I remember like one of my favorite chapters is written through the lens of like a fairy tale. And so she uses all these different like literary lenses to look at her own situation. And it's really interesting. And it's also about like how she and her partner were both in like MFA creative writing programs. So it's about writing, it's about literature, it's about queerness, it's about the history of queerness, it's about all these different things. And it's woven together so well, and I highly recommend it. It's honestly one of the best books I've ever read. And I need to probably read it again because it's been like a year or two since I read it. And then number 8 is Negroni, book with a love triangle. So honestly, I kind of hate love triangles. I think they're usually like pretty cheesy, and I'm usually just like, okay, this one person is obviously the better choice and the other one just needs to get out of the way. But there's one book where I feel like it was done lightly and I actually kind of liked it. So I'm going to go with The Disasters by M.K. England. And this is one I also haven't talked about on my channel because I read this like a few years ago. But I'm thinking about getting a copy and rereading it because I really loved it when I read it. So this is a young adult sci-fi, and it's about this group of kids who are at this like kind of like this academy where they learn how to be like space pilots and stuff. And it's about this one kid, I think his name, I forgot what his name is, I think it's like Nico or something. But anyways, he is like one of the top kids at this school. And like the day before their really important exam where, you know, you pass this exam and then you get put in like a group, and that's like your group, that your like squad or whatever that you fight with whenever there's like a space battle. He is like really nervous the night before his first exam, and so he like takes a ship and like flies out of the academy and like into space. And he finds something that he wasn't supposed to find, and things kind of like go from there. And he and these other kids who are kind of like misfits at this academy have to team up to take on this like evil corporation and stuff. And it's really good. It's really fast-paced and fun. But I think the main character, I think he's bisexual, so there's like other people in his squad, and there's a girl and a guy that he kind of likes both of them, and so there's a little bit of like tension there, but it's like really lightly done. It's not like the main plot of the story, you know, so I really liked that. I thought it was really fun, so would recommend that if you haven't read it, especially if you're into like the Aurora cycle with like Aurora Rising and stuff like that, or if you're into Illuminae, because it's kind of like in the same vein as those ones. And then number 9 is Daybreeze, a book with light, chill, heartwarming vibes. So for this I went with a middle grade, so this is Clairvoyant by, I think her name is Rochelle Delaney, and this is about this little girl, and her name is Clara, and she moves with her mom to this new town, and she has to go to a new middle school, and she wants to be an investigative journalist, and so she joins like the journalism club or whatever at her school, and she is like trying to find her place, and she feels like she doesn't really fit in with the other kids, and so this one main girl who's kind of like, I don't know, like the bratty main girl of the journalism club, she assigns Clara to write the horoscopes for the like journal or newspaper that they're writing, and Clara's like really mad because she doesn't believe in zodiac signs and all that kind of stuff, and it's so funny because Clara's mom is like this witchy lady, and she works in like an herbalist shop kind of, or like an occult shop where they have like herbs and, you know, witchy candles and crystals and stuff like that. And it's so funny because Clara is like so not down for that kind of stuff, and it's just so fun and so funny, and Clara is so snarky and I loved her. Yeah, and there's also kind of like a mystery going on that Clara has to solve, and it's just so fun. It's very lighthearted, it's very fun and kind of witchy if you're into that, so I would recommend that if you're looking for something just fun and like a little bit witchy and cute, that's middle grade, so that was really cool. And I haven't heard anybody else really talk about that book. So anyways, if you like middle grade, you should read that. And then number 10 is Dark and Stormy, a book that's dark, thrilling, and menacing. Bonus points if the setting matches. So for this, I'm going to go with Mexican Gothic. I kind of went back and forth over this one because there's a lot of ones I could have picked for this. But Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia is definitely dark, and it's set at this like creepy Gothic mansion that's like kind of run down and stuff in like an old city in Mexico. And there's also like a graveyard that's really like foggy and creepy and stuff, so it kind of reminded me of like the Dark and Stormy setting. And this is a gothic horror novel, and it also has some like nature horror elements, so all I'm gonna say is mushroom horror. If you're into like creepy nature, mushroom, fungus, nastiness, then this is the book for you. I didn't even know I was into that. I didn't even really know it was a thing that you could be into, but I read this book and I ate it up, so would recommend. We follow this girl, and she's young. I think she's like, I don't know, maybe like late 20s, and she gets this weird cryptic letter from her cousin, and her cousin has just married this man, and she's living in this creepy mansion with him and his family, and she writes this weird letter to her cousin. I think her cousin's name is Noemi, and Noemi is like, what the hell, like my cousin sounds like she's not okay, like should I go check on her? And her dad is like, yeah, seriously, go check on your cousin because she sounds like she's not well. So Noemi goes to check on her cousin, and she gets there and she's like, the family is creepy and the house is creepy and the house is like really run down, and I don't think there's like any electricity, and they're out in the middle of like nowhere on a hill, and things are kind of sus, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, and then she starts having like weird like hallucination vision things, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with her cousin because the family like doesn't really want her to see her cousin, and it's a whole thing. And anyways, shit hits the fan and it kind of goes from there, and it gets really spooky and dark. So if you're into that, you should read this. Also, if you have any other book recommendations for books that are like kind of similar to Mexican Gothic, that are dark and spooky and maybe have like a cool creepy house setting or like some nature horror elements, leave that link down below. Or leave me a recommendation in the comments because I could use one. Also, sorry if you can hear the heater. It just came on and it's kind of loud, but I don't want to freeze to death, so I'm not shutting it off. Alright, so our last question is number 11, a martini, a classic book recommendation. So for this, I'm going to go with The Street by Ann Petrie. So you probably haven't heard of this, but this is a book that I read for my African American literature class in college, and I think it's honestly one of the best books I've ever read. It's definitely the best classic I've ever read. So this book is about this woman who is African American, and she's a single mother, but she's living in this apartment with her son in a predominantly black neighborhood. And she is just trying to work, she's just trying to get by, and she keeps running into all of these men who are kind of like nasty and are trying to like take advantage of her and stuff, and she is just really strong-willed and badass, and she's just trying to make it in this world and, you know, be there for her son. And she ended up, you know, moving into this apartment on her own, and she left her husband because he cheated on her. And this book is really, really important, and it was really impactful when I read it because it's about motherhood, it's about being a black woman in society, it's about racism, it's about sexism, it's about all of that kind of stuff. And it, honestly, I get chills just thinking about this book because the writing is really, really well done. And it's really beautiful, and it's also really hard to read at times. But I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a really good classic to read, or if you're looking for a really good book by a black author featuring Black women, I would recommend The Street, because it is fantastic. So that is the last book I have to recommend you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Also, leave me any book recommendations that you have in the comments, especially anything that's like historical fiction, or if you have any horror book recommendations for me, leave those down below because I could definitely use them. That is all I have. I will see you in another video very soon. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video, like, comment, follow, share, all that stuff. Also, I leave my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, all of that linked down below if you want to follow me on any other platforms. Is there anything else? Oh, I also have some other videos that I've been working on. So I have a new reading vlog that's in the works. I also have some more book recommendations videos coming out soon, so look out for those. And you should definitely subscribe if you want to see more from me, because I have lots of stuff that's going to be coming out in the next few months, and I'm very excited. So that's all I have for you, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!